Let's talk about the one thing you're not supposed to say out loud. Why did God let you waste your life? Not a bad month. Not a rough season. I'm talking about the years you don't get back. The energy you spent believing. The loyalty you poured into someone who was never meant to stay. You thought you were being faithful. You thought staying made you godly. You thought endurance was obedience. But while you were crying on your bedroom floor, God felt silent. Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he interrupt you sooner? Why let you build a future in your mind that would never exist in reality? It wasn't just the relationship. It was the time, the emotional investment, the version of your life you already started living. You asked for clarity. You asked for peace. You asked God to fix it. Instead, he let it die. And today, we're not talking about moving on. We're talking about the healing you never asked for, the kind that feels like betrayal at first, but later reveals itself as mercy, because there is a reason God let that door slam shut. And it's not because he ignored you. It's because he was answering a prayer at a deeper level than you understood. Here's the first truth that reframes everything. Point 1. God's silence was not absence. It was restraint. We assume God's intervention always looks like rescue. A sign, a warning, a sudden change. But Scripture shows us something harder. There was a moment when Paul begged God again and again to remove what was hurting him. And God said no. Not because Paul lacked faith, but because God told him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Sometimes God stays silent, not because he agrees with what's happening, but because he's allowing it to expose what you're attached to. Think about this honestly. How many times did you feel unsettled and call it spiritual warfare? How many times did peace left, but you stayed anyway because leaving felt like failure? Scripture tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. But guarding doesn't always look like prevention. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. So you finally stop fighting for what's costing you too much. That wasn't abandonment. That was restraint. Point 2. Some relationships don't fail. They expire. We treat endings like moral judgments. If it ended, someone must be wrong. But Scripture says, there is a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Expiration doesn't mean something was never good. It means staying past its season becomes dangerous. Milk doesn't turn evil. It becomes unsafe. Many people stayed faithful to something God had already released, not because they loved wrongly, but because they confused endurance with obedience. There were moments when Jesus was not welcomed, and instead of forcing connection, he walked away. If a relationship required you to lose peace to keep connection, it had already expired. Even if love was still present. Point 3. You didn't stay for love. You stayed for the outcome. This is where it gets uncomfortable. You weren't just holding on to a person. You were holding on to a future you had already rehearsed in your mind. You stayed because leaving would mean admitting the vision you built wasn't God's promise. It was your hope. Jesus once said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So ask yourself, gently, honestly, was your treasure the relationship, or what you believed it would finally prove about you? Faith does not mean forcing God to bless our attachments. It means trusting him enough to release them. God didn't end it to punish you. He ended it to break your dependence on an outcome that was quietly replacing him. Point 4. The pain you feel is not destruction, it's separation. There is pain that damages you, and there is pain that detaches you. This pain is not sabotage, it's surgery. In that relationship, you found the exact point where loving someone else required betraying yourself. That edge, that breaking point, is holy ground. Scripture tells us that God disciplines those he loves, not to harm them, but to shape them and produce what is right. This is not God stripping your worth. It's God restoring it. Job never received an explanation, yet healing still came. Closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from alignment. Point 5. God healed you by ending what you kept tolerating. This is the truth that finally sets people free. God didn't just end the relationship. He ended the version of you that survived on emotional starvation. The next version of you, clearer, calmer, more discerning, could not survive in the environment you were in. There is a moment in Scripture where God says, "Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your curtains wide." But before expansion, something has to be removed. Distance is not punishment, it's space. Space to breathe without anxiety. Space to hear God without noise. Space to become someone who no longer begs for what once drained them. You didn't lose time. You gained wisdom. You didn't fall behind. You stepped out of what was holding you back. That is not tragedy. That is the healing you never asked for. Peace does not arrive with answers. It arrives with acceptance. And one day, you will look back and realize, God didn't take something from you. He made room. Sit with that. Let the empty space be an altar, not a grave. I know the silence still feels heavy. I know there are moments when you reach for your phone and almost text what God already removed. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Healing doesn't erase memory. It retrains desire. Scripture says God is close to the brokenhearted, not to rush them, not to shame them, but to stay near while they relearn trust. This quiet season, it's not punishment, it's recalibration. God is teaching your nervous system what peace feels like without chaos attached to it. And one day you'll notice something quietly miraculous. You don't crave what broke you anymore, not because it stopped mattering, but because you healed. That is how you'll know the healing worked. There's something else happening right now that you might not recognize yet. God isn't just healing what hurt you. He's refining what you'll never tolerate again. Scripture says wisdom comes quietly, like oil poured over time, not like lightning all at once. One day you'll notice your boundaries feel natural now, not forced, not defensive, just clear. You'll stop explaining why you need peace. You'll stop negotiating your worth. And you'll realize, this is what answered prayer actually looks like. Not the relationship you asked for, but the wholeness you needed. And this time, you're ready to protect it.
If this story of faith and purpose spoke to your heart, we would love to hear from you. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let others feel encouraged too. And if you want more stories that lift your spirit and strengthen your faith, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Together, let's spread hope.